Hi, welcome back to the Leading Women series. I'm Debra Werner, Space News correspondent, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Katie Wall, True Anomaly Director of Government Affairs. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Deborah.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So to get started, for people who aren't familiar with True Anomaly, how would you describe the company?
Yeah, so True Anomaly is a national security space company. We're about 2 years old, founded by former space operators who wanted to develop the capabilities that the US and our allies will need to deter and defend conflict in space. So True Anomaly we build hardware and software to provide Guardians the ability and the information that they will need to defend in a domain that's hard to access, but that is crucially important to our way of life on Earth. True Anomaly spacecraft Jackal is an autonomous orbital vehicle, specifically for space domain awareness purposes, and it's designed to maneuver without regret, which is unique and something that's difficult to do with other SDA systems that are more expensive. And so there's this desire to preserve fuel. So that's kind of one of the differences between what True Anomaly is doing and historical hardware.
So maneuver without regret, does that mean that I don't have to worry that this might be I can only make 6 maneuvers because I might run out of fuel or something?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So historically, these exquisite spacecraft operators have been hesitant to maneuver unless they're 100% sure what they're going to do is going to, have the desired results, because it's expensive to either refuel or to repopulate them. And Jackal is cost effective. It's much more inexpensive to create, and it's sort of it's designed to be attritable. So maneuver until you can't anymore, deorbit and reconstitute.
Got it. Got it. And one of my goals through this series is to make sure that people who might not know all these terms can learn them.
Yeah.
So what is space domain awareness and why is that important?
That's a great question. So space domain awareness is a relatively new term. It was coined by General John Shaw when he was in uniform in, I think, 2019, which is also the same time that Space Force was being negotiated and created in Congress. And it really, that year was sort of a turning point for us on the global stage, the United States on the global stage. It was an indicator that space is becoming a warfighting domain. And so previously, and you still hear it, industry talk about space situational awareness, which is detecting, tracking, identifying objects in space. The space domain awareness sort of takes it that next step. And the goal is to identify, but also characterize and analyze what these objects in space are doing, sort of what attributes do these resident space objects, quote unquote, have, and what impact could they have on security in the domain and terrestrial life. And I think it becomes more and more important because space is becoming more congested, and that's not going to change. So we need, as a nation, to have these capabilities that can quickly and accurately track and predict the behavior of objects in space. And really, adversarial capabilities in the domain necessitate the US having improved space domain awareness capabilities. So again, not just the ability to locate and identify, but to characterize sort of the intent, should it be adversarial, so that we can defend against it.
So some of your comments make me think of tactically responsive space. As a former chief of staff for the National Space Council, do you see that capability as being important?
Absolutely. And it's funny, I keep going back to 2019 because that was also when tactically responsive then launch was created. It was actually created in the National Defense Authorization Act that Space Force was created. So 2019 into 2020. And it's absolutely important. You see that in the way that Congress created it continues to fund it and plus it up over the years. And the way that the Space Force has responded to its creation and its continued funding by doing these demonstration missions year after year to hone the capability. True Anomaly was lucky enough, we just won we were one of the industry selected to participate in a future Victus Haze mission. Last year or the year before, they had the successful Victus Nox mission. And, you know, it's gone from responsive launch to a program that is now honing in on it's just as important what you're launching as quickly as you can launch it. So looking at getting space domain awareness capabilities on orbit as quickly as possible. So that was sort of the migration into tactically responsive space. And it's absolutely important. And it's important that we're honing these capabilities now so that we have them to deter conflict in the future.
And Victus Nox and Victus Haze are really aimed at just slashing, just demolishing the normal timelines that we always considered, oh, it'll take years to get something new into orbit.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the reason that as a nation we are able to respond on these timelines during these demonstration missions is because the Space Force is acknowledging that it can lean on industry, and industry can innovate more quickly than historical acquisition structures. So I think as the Space Force continues to lean on and utilize commercial capabilities, the quicker we can respond and get things on orbit and launch faster and that sort of thing.
Got it. You began your career in the public sector and you are now working in the private sector. How is that experience different?
Yeah, so I started in state government, ended up at the White House. It was a exponential leap from somebody from Indiana. But the way I've looked at it over the last 4 or 5 years since I left government is that it's really been a continuation of what I did in government. My last 2 years were at the National Space Council. And what I am now able to do is think about, okay, who were the people that communicated the best with me when I was in government? What did they do to make my job easier, to really facilitate collaboration between industry and the private sector and government? And that's really what I do is try to communicate as best as possible with the decision makers in government. But it is different, you know, you're not working on behalf of the government or a particular leader, but more on behalf of a mission set. You know, we seek to help create a more secure and sustainable space domain at True Anomaly. And so it's, again, a transition from what I was doing at the Space Council to the continuation. Like, we stood up the Space Force and had all of these successes in working towards a sustainable and safe domain. And at True Anomaly, I get to see that from the other side and help move the government mission forward with commercial capabilities.
So you're giving me an idea of what a government affairs director does, but can you explain it a little better?
Yeah, so government affairs, also sometimes some companies call it government relations. We are lobbyists. Typically, I am a registered lobbyist, but it's about relationships. It's about communicating with decision makers and educating. So as the Director of Government Affairs for True Anomaly, my focus is and has been for the past year plus to educate decision makers, policy makers about the company, about the capabilities we provide and how those capabilities are meeting current and future program needs to meet future threats, and really to be a partner to the government, not just you know, somebody trying to sell something to the government. So really it's about relationships, building and fostering relationships with the people we are seeking to provide capabilities and services to.
I understand. How is what you do at True Anomaly different from previous work consulting for multiple companies?
Yeah, so when I left government service, I went into private consulting and I consulted for 5 to 10 aerospace companies. And I found what I learned is I preferred to be focused on one specific mission. So rather than providing advice to civil space companies, exploration companies, defense companies, I realized that my passion is for national security space and securing the domain. And so what's different about being in-house at True Anomaly is that I get to come to work every day focused on the national security of the United States and our allies, instead of being a mile wide and an inch deep. When you're in-house in government affairs for a company, you get to dig a little deeper into the issues and really become an expert on the capabilities and the technology and the issue area that you're lobbying and advocating for.
Great. Do you ever offer people advice? I know that when I talk to people, their stereotype of who's in the space sector is white male engineer. So do you offer advice for those people or for somebody who doesn't fit that stereotype?
Yeah, so I don't fit that stereotype. And I definitely had that same misconception, I think, at the beginning of my career. I was working as on the operations team for the vice president when I was approached and asked if I would consider coming to Space Council. And I remember saying, I don't know anything about space. That's not for me. Thank you so much. Next. And they said, no, we've got a lot of people who know about space. We need other skill sets. And so that is what I've carried with me the last 5-6 years. And I tell people when they ask me that question, because I do get asked that a lot, that the space industry is no different than any other industry. It requires a wide array of skill sets. I have a bachelor's degree in political science. I was a 15-year government servant, not a technical person per se, but it ended up being the skill set that the Space Council needed in those last 2 years of the administration. And so, yes, space needs technical backgrounds. We need people who can build satellites, spacecraft, software engineers. But we also need people who can communicate to the average person. We need people who can communicate with government decision makers and Congress. That is not often going to be the aerospace engineer, although there are some unicorns in the industry that can do all of it, and that's very impressive. We need policy experts. We need legal and compliance experts. We need business development professionals. We need operations and administrative professionals, communicators. So, it's easy to look at something from the outside and say, I didn't study aerospace. It's not for me. Moving on, which is exactly what I did. But it's important to remember that the organization itself, these aerospace organizations, and even NASA, DoD, Space Force, are really as diverse as just the entirety of the human population. Otherwise, nothing would get done. We'd have a lot of stuff, but we wouldn't be able to do anything with it.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff on the ground.
Yes.
You've answered my questions. Is there anything else you want to say? And I'm curious, what made you go from no thanks next to, sure, I could work on the National Space Council?
Yeah, so I'll start with that and then I'll add on to it. But I was really I was done with the conversation. I owe it to the people that continued to follow up and say, no, we really think this is a good role and a good fit for you, and me exploring it. And it sort of ties together with what else I would like to tell folks, which is what ended up helping me cross the decision point and say, okay, I'll give this one a shot. The first was I got to keep working with then Vice President Pence's team, which was very important to me. I had been a long time member of that team, and so I got to still stay part of it. But space is so exciting and the community is so welcoming. And so all of the people I had met in the aerospace industry for the 2 years I had worked kind of in tandem with them when the vice president became chair of the Space Council, it was a draw to say, okay, I've never met somebody in aerospace that I didn't like, that wasn't super welcoming, that made me feel like a part of the conversation. And so as I meet folks, young people and people looking just to transition into aerospace, I say, you know, there is no shortage of people in this industry that want to welcome new people into this industry. They're welcoming, they're kind, they want to give advice and help you learn from their experiences. It's not a big industry. I mean, you know that, Deborah. It's a very small industry, and everyone knows everyone, and everyone wants generally for everyone to succeed. And so what I would love to tell everybody listening who maybe isn't part of the aerospace industry is that, you know, reach out, ask people. People want to be mentors. People want to, they want to bring you over to our side and bring you into aerospace. They want to convert you into a space nerd. There's no there are endless amounts of networking events. Usually they're free. And I encourage folks to attend, ask questions, ask about what opportunities might exist based upon your background or interests. The industry is growing at such a crazy pace, and we need more talent in the industry to fill the pipeline, because there's not enough people with experience in aerospace to fill the available opportunities that are coming our way.
Yeah, available now and growing, it seems, very rapidly.
Yes.
So I may have sidetracked you a little. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, you know, jumping from if you're not an aerospace person, reach out, to if you are an aerospace person, I encourage folks to check out True Anomaly's available postings. We are hiring. We're hiring a lot of engineers because we are launching 2 more missions in the next 6 months. So encourage folks to look into True Anomaly, reach out if you have questions. I'm on LinkedIn. And yeah, it's a fabulous community. If there's ever been an interest, I encourage people to look into joining the space industry because it's wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate it.